Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Before we sink our teeth into some new mechanics that the sequel of Breath of the Wild could introduce, I would like to say a huge thank you to you guys. Last week we hit 150 subscribers. That's insane. That's like an entire small school. So thank you all so much, and I'm grateful for every single one of you. But I should probably get into why you clicked onto this video. Mechanics that could come to the much anticipated sequel to Breath of the Wild. I will be including mechanics that were touched on in the older games, and even some that were thoroughly explored in the older games. So let's get into it. First of all, I'd love to see a return to the sailing first seen in Windwaker and slightly more looked at in Phantom Hourglass. The thing is, I feel like this was sort of present and ready to be further developed on in Breath of the Wild. Many Breath of the Wild fans will know that you can use a raft in the first game, as rafts are scattered pretty much everywhere in the overworld. To use such a raft, you must simply equip a Korok leaf and swing it in the direction that you'd like to travel in. And you'll notice that the sail on the raft changes direction depending on which way you're swinging your leaf. Now this is cool and all, I mean it added a way of traversal over water, but I don't know about anyone else, but I only used the sailing feature like once on my first playthrough. But maybe I'm just an outlier. The point is that the feature clearly wasn't fully explored in game. Now, as many have theorised, the next game could include sections based in other kingdoms. If these theories do end up being true, and not only just being lifeless theories, then the hero of Wilds will most likely need to travel to these other kingdoms by boat, as we see in the first game that the land of Hyrule is completely marooned in a giant lagoon of water. Now this is a big hope on my end after having many nights of thinking about this idea, but imagine if Link and Zelda created a sort of pirate ship that they command to get to further away lands. This is more than just extremely unlikely though. What I expect more from the Zelda team if they come along with this idea is something closer to the King of Red Lions or Linebeck's ship seen in Phantom Hourglass. Even if it turns out that there may not be more kingdoms that the pair of Wilds can venture through, and instead the Underground is a second world, then we could see the heroes travel by boat underneath some caverns, as in real life water is found in most caves. Even in the trailer we see hints of rivers underground present when Link and Zelda seem to be taking a break. For now this is only speculation. But in the coming months we're sure to be getting a new trailer, so until then we can only speculate on most things, especially when this is a large portion of the game that would be amazing if this was added. Now the next thing that I'd like to discuss is the inclusion of a sort of repair system. Personally, I don't think that the inclusion of this feature is necessary to any degree at all, but it seems that it could be a very real possibility that we could see a repair system in the next game. My reasoning to thinking this is purely because the Zelda team seemed to be listening to the feedback of Breath of the Wild, and a gripe that many fans seem to have with the game was the fact that you couldn't actually repair your weapons with the materials you collect around Hyrule. Now, as I said, I actually wouldn't like to see this in a future title. In my opinion, the durability system encouraged players to keep on using different weapons. Many seem to think that the system's flaws were found when they collected a good weapon, as they wouldn't like to break a good weapon, or would instead save it for a later time. My response to this problem is purely to keep on playing the game and use those good weapons. Eventually you'll end up getting better weapons, as that's the new game's progression. But enough with my rant, you're here to discuss possible new features. Some ways that I think that a repair feature could be implemented is by featuring a blacksmith, or maybe even more than one blacksmith in the new game. It really would be an easy sort of fix for the people who are complaining about the durability system, and it's a very Nintendo sort of thing to do. You know, you could meet the blacksmith and he'd say a line like, "Hey, I'm Beston, I'm Kakariko Village's new resident blacksmith. I'll repair your weapons using your materials, and only if you pay me." I think that could be how the system could work. Have any of you got any ideas of how repairing could be implemented? If you do, then please let me know in the comments, as I have actually no good clue apart from this. The penultimate thing that I'd like to speculate about is something that we've seen sort of evidence of in the teaser trailer. That's right, after one whole year of analysing this trailer, I've taken one thing away from it, and that's that more animals will be mountable and some may have inventories. I do have one more thing that we still have a little bit of evidence for, but that's next. Let's talk about the now. New rideable mounts. Some could be asking where this could be seen in the trailer. And to that I would say the animal that Zelda and Link seem to be riding in the caverns. What's more from this, we can see that there could be new species in the sequel to Breath of the Wild, as this animal is nothing that we've seen in Breath of the Wild. More on the speculation side though, we could see some rideable mounts that you can place something like a saddle onto, that I guess could act as a separate inventory. Coincidentally, the Zelda team said they were looking to Red Dead Redemption 2 for inspiration for the next game, and Red Dead included a small inventory for the horse. So the Zelda team could indeed expand on this if they see this somewhat small detail. The thing is, just as we did with sailing, we've sort of seen this explored a tiny bit in the first game. Some of you may not know that you can actually ride a bear in Breath of the Wild. I'm not gonna lie, I had no idea about this until like January time. And I was shocked that I could still be amazed by a game I've played for 200 hours and it's been out for more than 3 years now. That's completely crazy. So as an overall roundup for this point, new mounts, new species, a brand new inventory, who knows for this sequel. Okay, so next is a very quick honourable mention. So many people are still talking about this to this day. That's the only reason why it's sat here on the list. But a playable Zelda. I also don't think that this would add much mechanically, but it couldn't be a list without including this, as this could mean that the next game could include certain sections where you play as Zelda, much like Mary Jane in the PS exclusive in Spider-Man. Or perhaps you could play as Zelda with an optional co-op partner. Personally, I don't mind too much about this, but it would be cool to play a real Zelda game with a friend. But I don't have much hope for it, and that's about as much as I'd like to delve into this today. The final thing that I'd love to talk about today is something that I've talked about on the channel a couple of times now, and that's the inclusion of some of the older, more well-known items that are typically used for progression in our Zelda games. But I'm going to look at one very specific one that I feel like has so much potential in the Breath of the Wild world, and that's the hookshot. Possibly the coolest item in Zelda history. Obviously we've seen concept art of Link using his hand for various different items, and the most notable was clearly the hookshot. And it's clear that the dev team wanted to include it somewhere, as in the concept art it seems to take centre stage. As I've said, I think that a hookshot in a huge open world will be a perfect fit. Perhaps the ability is locked behind a dungeon nearer to the end of the game, but when you're let out of that dungeon for the first time, imagine stepping out into the open and hookshotting into a giant mountain such as Dueling Peaks, and climbing the rest of the way. Imagine how epic that would be. It could also make for some very interesting dungeon puzzles, as we've seen in the past with the likes of the City in the Sky in Twilight Princess and the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time. Breath of the Wild is a game about giving the player freedom, so why not give the player a different level of freedom in its sequel, and let the player zoom around the map. And while I'm brainstorming the idea, I'd also like to discuss some limitations. A clear one would be that it would only be one hookshot, not like the claw shot seen in Twilight Princess, meaning that you can only use it once before you have to climb or land on the ground. To go along with this, I think that a cooldown time of, say, 5 minutes should be in place so that the player can't use it forever. Hyrule Castle seems to rise in the trailer to the sequel. This shows that a hookshot seems even more likely, as it could be found in the last dungeon to open up the ability of facing Ganon in a floating Hyrule Castle. But as usual, there I go again with the speculation. But there is one thing that I know for sure. This game is set to be one for the ages. Now I thank you all so much for watching this video, and I thank you all once more for 150 subscribers. So next, let's aim for 200. I know you can all do it. Which of my suggestions do you think is most likely? Or maybe you think that I'm completely wrong, and if you do, then that's fine. But why not leave your thoughts in the comments, as I respond to every single comment. Speaking of, if you made it here in the video, comment "the underground cave looks amazing." I've started to use my Twitter a bit more, and I use my Instagram just as much anyway. So please do check them out. The handles are on screen right now and are also in the description. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like rating and subscribe for more Zelda and general Nintendo content every single week, as I will be reacting to the Pokemon Presents on the 24th. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the week. Goodbye.